Our next parable, it's still coming from Luke, starting at Luke 16, verse 1. Jesus also said to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was wasting his possessions. And he called him and said to him, what is this that I hear about you? Turn in the account of your management, for you can no longer be manager. And the manager said to himself, what shall I do, since my master is taking the management away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I've decided what to do, so that when I am removed from management, people may receive me into their houses. So, summoning his master's debtors one by one, he said to the first, how much do you owe my master? He said, 100 measures of oil. He said to him, take your bill, sit down quickly, and write 50. Then he said to another, how much do you owe? He said, 100 measures of wheat. He said to him, take your bill, and write 80. The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourself by means of unrighteous wealth, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. One who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. If then you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust you with true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another's, who will give to you that which is your own? No servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. So I gotta tell you, I think this is a tough parable. It's tough to understand like what kind of the point is here. So I'm gonna go through and I'm just kind of give you my thoughts on it, and we can see where that leaves us. So the first is that he's coming in and he's cutting people's bills so they'll look upon him favorably. And I think there are two real ways to understand this. The first is just simply about as straightforward as it is. He's like, I have the power to cut my master's these debts that he has against other people so that they'll appreciate me. And when my master fires me, they'll take me into their homes. And I think that's probably a really good way to understand this. But something that struck me is if he was wasting his possessions, if maybe he wasn't being a super faithful manager, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that he had kind of added on to these debts inappropriately for his own gain. So maybe he was trying to recover a little bit. I think that's possible. I don't think it really goes with the rest, but that's kind of where my thought process is working through this. Because then the master summons him and he says, well, he commended him for his shrewdness. And there's a note here in the Lutheran Study Bible. It says, it's praise for the shrewdness, but not necessarily approval, right? So there's kind of this element of like, almost like begrudging respect. I imagine this master like, I'm not happy with what you did, but I can respect the hustle, I guess. And then it goes into this, make friends for yourself by means of unrighteous wealth, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. And the note, I'm kind of relying on these notes a little bit. Although the wealth belongs in a fallen world, the disciples' stewardship can follow higher principles. So even we have this understanding of maybe, money is a necessary evil, which when you get to the end, it contrasts God and money, and it says you can't serve both. There's this recognition that while money can be an idol, it is kind of, a lot of vices are caught up in money and the pursuit of money. It can be used well. It can be used to care for people. It can be used to kind of build this goodwill. And then it talks about who is faithful in little is also faithful in much, etc., etc. So, like, even though we might call it unrighteous wealth, we're called to be faithful stewards of it, to take care of it in the way that God would have us take care of it. And it gets to the end because ultimately we are serving God. Ultimately, our pursuit is to please God. and that's going to change kind of how we spend our money, where our priorities are, and stuff like that. So, um, those are, I guess, some thoughts on the parable. I apologize, I guess, if there's nothing great for you to walk away with, or maybe you don't feel any more clarity than when you started this video. But I got to be honest, this parable, it's kind of a struggle for me, and that's why I relied on these study notes so much. And like if I was preaching on this parable, I would do a lot of work in the commentaries and kind of read what other people have learned and studied about it. So, a kind of a lesson underneath the lesson is it's okay to not understand everything you read. And the encouragement is to use things like study Bibles with these notes, to use your resources, to use your pastor, that's me, to learn more even about this stuff that maybe you don't understand. You don't have to understand the whole Bible before you start reading the whole Bible, is my point. Anyway, I'm over time. Brothers and sisters, go in peace. Serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.